Today we're going to talk about why the sacred feminine and sacred feminine consciousness is so important in a woman's healing and in her process of awakening. Hi everyone, it's Misa Hopkins, Mother Misa, as some of you know me. On this channel, we talk about awakening and healing in the sacred feminine to help you find your greatest purpose and live your life to the fullest amidst today's challenges. So if you are a daughter or son of the divine and you're wanting more support, be sure to click the subscribe button below and check out the links and resources underneath. Today I want to talk with you about why sacred feminine consciousness is so important in a woman's journey of healing and ultimately her awakening. If you're here with me today, I know that you have a deep interest in healing in a new way, in a conscious way that embraces sacred feminine energy, or you're deeply connected to sacred feminine consciousness and you're aware that it has something to give you. Maybe you don't quite know what yet, but you know that it has something to give you. It's stirring and it's awakening inside you. So let's explore this a little bit today. When I started my journey in the sacred feminine years ago, I had no idea that's the journey I was on. As some of you know, because I've shared this story many times, that process began for me when I was having all kinds of weird symptoms in my body. A lot of pain, couldn't be sexual with my husband. My emotions were just all over the place. Acne on my skin. I felt terrible most of the time, and I was depressed for no apparent reason. I couldn't figure out why I was so depressed. And I went to all kinds of doctors. At that time, with my former husband, we were thinking about having a baby, and so that was of interest to me. So I'd see my GYOB and talk about the possibility of getting pregnant, but also I had all these weird symptoms that I couldn't quite understand, and I wasn't sure I wanted to conceive a baby in such a poor state of health. So I'd talk with them about what we could do, and back then the answers were pretty limited. It pretty much boiled down to, you can get pregnant if you want to and maybe everything will clear up. It does for some women. And that didn't feel right to me, not at all. So I went from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And it was 7 years of this terrible pain and depression with no diagnosis, no clear diagnosis, and seemingly no help in sight. And one day, I've shared this on television, this story, and I want to share it with you now because it was one of those poignant moments that I think many of us get to, that moment where we make this pact with ourselves, and that's when everything changes. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror. This is my moment. Tears are streaming down my face, and I'm saying, I don't know what it's going to take, but I am here with you, and I am going to heal. I don't know how, but I am going to heal. And I pulled myself together because I was supposed to go shopping with a friend, right? And I get past the tears and I get my makeup on and I get dressed and I'm like, all right, Misa, just go, just live. And I get in the car and we're chatting like usual, and all of a sudden she starts saying something very different. And because I had told her I almost didn't come because I didn't feel well, and she said, are you feeling really depressed? Are you feeling like it's hard to get a handle on your life? Is your body changing in ways that are uncomfortable for you? And she started listing symptoms I was experiencing. And I said, yes. And she said, well, there are 2 major hormonal imbalances that women can have. I said, really? Tell me more. And she's talking about how she went through these terrific hormonal changes. She found an endocrinologist that was able to diagnose her and help her. I mean, literally, we are talking literally within a half an hour from the moment I was standing in front of my bathroom mirror saying, I am here for you, I will heal. Here was this beautiful woman I had been working with for months talking to me in a way that I knew she understood my pain. Still, can still feel it. That feeling. You know that feeling? When somebody gets you. They get it. They're not pretending. They're not being professional, being present. They get you because they've been there. And that was my moment. She got me. And the next thing I know, I had the name of a doctor. I went to the doctor, made an appointment. He did the same thing. He listened. Well, I guess it wasn't the same thing. She had listened to me internally. She'd been watching me. She'd been paying attention. He listened here. He listened with his heart and with his ears to every symptom that I had. And then he explained to me that we were going to run some tests, but more than likely, I was producing as much testosterone as a teenage boy. That's a lot of testosterone. And that is exactly what the test showed. So what he helped me understand on a physical level was that my body was completely changing. I was becoming more like a man. So my breasts were atrophying, my female organs were atrophying. I was obviously in emotional distress because my hormones were on end. I was literally becoming a man. And I can tell you in that experience that things tasted different. Things looked different. I thought about life differently. So, thankfully, this doctor was able to put me into a hormone therapy that did make changes. Over 7 years, I started to see my body shift and reclaim my femininity. Thankfully, I had enough wherewithal to realize that I needed emotional help. Now, I didn't know where that was leading me either. I just knew I needed emotional help, right? And I started seeing a therapist. I went to workshops. I did all kinds of things. Gave myself the opportunity to experience a massage, all kinds of alternative therapies and treatments that ultimately, as I discovered, were taking me into a place where I could be present to those raging, tormenting emotions, because they were all over the map. One moment I would be in tears, the next moment I was flying off the handle at someone I loved. And I seemed to have no control over what was going on inside me. And that scared me more than anything. That scared me. That I could hurt someone else because emotionally I wasn't stable. I wasn't clear. That led me to Judith Dirk's work. And if you're not familiar with her seminal work, The Circle of Stones, she was brilliant at bringing women together in circle to go into the silence, to speak into the well of that silence what they were experiencing, and to be nourished by their own awareness, their self-awareness, to be nourished by that beautiful serenity and silence, to be nourished by the other women in the circle, in that empathy, right, that gets you so profoundly because they're going through their own versions of the same awakening. And it was through these processes that I realized I was awakening the sacred feminine part of myself, the part I had broken faith with, that I had left. At a very early age, I had decided it was safer to be a man than it was to be a woman. So as my former husband and I are planning on having children, that's kind of the ultimate expression of being a woman, isn't it? To give birth to new life. So my body and my psyche clamped down and said, girl, that's not safe. No. This way, over here, become a man, that's safer. Now, where did that come from? It came directly from a repressed experience that I had consciously chosen not to remember. And that was that I had been sexually abused as a child, as a little girl. And so in my little mind at that time, I created this protective device. And the protective device was, it's a whole lot safer to be a man, right? There's an element of control and safety here than it is to be a woman or a girl where you're out of control, where you don't have the same kind of ability to influence your environment. So That's what my body was doing. And it was through that emotional healing that I could eventually remember, safely, by the way, and you do not have to remember to heal. You do not have to remember. It's the biggest fear we have, is that I have to remember the abuse and the trauma that started it all, but you don't. What I learned through that process is that as we as women, as I as a woman, reclaimed my own feminine essence that Judith Dirk taught me, that ability to sit in the silence, to be present to the emotions that were there, to tell my story in all of its truth, not hiding anything, in its rawness, in its truth, the painful parts and the glorious parts. And I learned how to open my heart, to hold it all in that exquisite feminine compassion. That in that compassion I healed. I healed emotionally, and I healed physically, and the peace I could not have expected. Then I went into these mystical journeys of awakening through feminine consciousness. What a precious, precious gift. So the story of my life became the story of my sacred work. How could I, as a woman, give to other women that same precious sacred space to discover their own sacred feminine essence, because that essence is so powerfully healing. And when the healing is ebbing and flowing and we're no longer stretched out, buried, burdened in that pain, then we're free. And that freedom brings the revelation of how we access the divine. And it is not the same pathway as men. It is our own pathway. And here we are at this glorious time in our history, remembering the pathway. We're awakening it inside of us. It's opening in our dreams and in our cells and in our thoughts and in vague memories of lifetimes a long time ago. There's this driving desire to find it once again, to redefine it, to bring it to life. And there are those pathways opening in our memories, showing us how we process, how we heal as women in sacred feminine consciousness. It's different, it's special, it's wonderful, it's full of dreams and psychic gifts and intuition and impulses we can't explain, compassion that is deeper than anything we could have imagined. Not just empathy for the pain, but empathy for the love, that we are able to hold the love for all things. It comes in circles. It comes in recognizing the uniqueness in every single woman's journey, without judgment about her choices, but in awe and reverence for her capacity to find the depths of the divine within herself. It comes in an understanding that we are all in this together, and we are all creating a new reality together. And as we, as women, open to that awareness, that memory, that knowingness, that ancient, ancient wisdom that lives deep inside of us, then we will understand how to hold that space for our men so that they can find it within themselves too. So I thank you for being a part of this journey with me, for listening to my thoughts today and listening to my story. And I'm curious about your story. What's your story of evolution? How did you get here to this moment? How has your healing or your desire for deeper awakening taken you to the very essence of the sacred feminine and the divine feminine? And what do you hope? The deep longing inside you, what is that hope that the sacred feminine, the divine feminine consciousness will give you? Please share your thoughts. Please share your comments with me today. I want to know. Thank you so much for being a part of this grand journey with all of us who are anchoring in the divine wisdom of the sacred feminine in this place, in this time right now. Also, be sure to visit my websites, misahopkins.com, where we explore self-healing techniques based in sacred feminine energy, and my nonprofit, sacredfeminine.awakening.com, where we honor ancient sacred feminine teachings and learn how to apply them for emotionally and spiritually balanced lives. Thanks for joining me today. Again, be sure to click the subscribe button to get more support like this in your journey of awakening and healing.